Okay, so what is hydroponic? It is, in theory, growing plants in a nutrient solution or soilless substrate. So if you put a plant in a potting media, potting mix, you are doing hydroponic. But most people understand hydroponic as growing in water or nutrient solution. Okay, so see, this is clay pellets, and we put some shoot cuttings. And so, in theory, this is hydroponic because you are not working with soil. Okay. What is the advantage of hydroponic? Well, you're growing in a greenhouse. That is where most of the production of hydroponic is commercially. So you don't have weeds, you don't have herbicides to worry about, fewer insects to worry about. You still have insects, aphids, thrips, white flies. Those some powdery mildew are the big four in my opinion, but it's simple compared to growing outside. You can grow multiple crop. A lettuce can be 30, 35 days in a greenhouse in a controlled environment compared to 50 days in the field, and you can do multiple crops per year. And of course, water use efficiency, all those, like we always say that to grow a crop in a greenhouse, it's 10% of the water usage than growing the same amount of crop in the field. So definitely higher water, electric, and fuel use efficiencies. I cannot go back because you're recording. I'm sorry. It seems that I got muted and I cannot go back in the slide. Uh, what I was going to say, the previous slide was talking about the advantages of hydroponic. You can grow multiple crops per year. You can grow the crops faster. It has better water use and electricity and fuel efficiencies. For example, we know that you can use 10% of the water in the greenhouse to grow the same amount of crop as if it was growing in the field. So definitely a lot of water savings there. And most importantly, a more simple pest management control issues to deal with. I mean, the biggest issues I have to deal with in our greenhouse are your aphids, your white flies, powdery mildew, and sometimes thrips. But otherwise, these three or four compared to 10 or 20 problems that you may have in the field. There are lots of systems. The passive system, meaning there's no electricity, no power added at all. This is the cheapest. No pumps, no electricity. You just put the plant in a nutrient solution and they grow. Okay, so for example, a kiddie pool hydroponic. You buy a kiddie pool, you buy, like you see here, you buy foam insulation from Home Depot. You can dig a hole or a small hole for a ceiling in it. These are called net cup. I will show you what they mean. But if you search net cup online on Amazon, you can buy them. This is the only thing that's a little technical, but otherwise everything you can find at a grocery at your local stores. And you put all the seedlings, and that's how they grow. Okay, we this is possible with these greens and herbs, especially in the cool season, because we know physics tells us that cold water holds oxygen more than warm water. So you put this time of year or in the fall, and when the water is temperature is cold, let's say 65, 70 maximum water temperature, and you can grow. But you try to grow a lettuce or any of these leafy green in the summer when the water temperature reaches 80, that water doesn't have any oxygen. The roots will starve for oxygen and they will rot. So that can be done. This is a great system to do it to get kids excited about growing plants and I mean look, this is one kiddie pool and look, it has like 30 plants in it, if not more. So it can be done fast and they will grow well and they will do fine. Okay, so that is the only one that is passive. That's no electricity, no pump, nothing. Everything else we'll talk about, like the NFT, Dutch bucket, all those systems are more expensive. You have a water pump, air pump, or both, timer, piping, channels, fertilizer mixers, and all that. Okay. So I'll talk in a little bit detail about all these systems, what we call NFT, which if you should have heard, I hope you've seen this online or somewhere. NFT, that stands for Nutrient Film Technique. If you've heard of DWC, that stands for Deep Water Culture. Deep flow technique, that's not very common. People don't hear about it, but that's what DFT stands for, deep flow technique. And Dutch bucket. Those are the top three or four very common. Of course, there's aeroponic, there is vertical tower, there's all kind. And really, once you have the concept in mind and you have the understanding of where everything is and how they work together, you can build it any way you like. Like if I show you a picture where the tank is under the channels, it doesn't have to be there for it to work. That fertilizer tank could be 10 feet away. As long as you have a pump that will pump it from there to here, you can, as long as you know what are the parts necessary and how they work, you can design them any way you like. Please, Craig, turn off your camera. It is distracting. Nutrient film technique. Let's start with that. Nutrient film technique. Here is a schematic. Here is a picture of a commercial system. Not really commercial. This is a small system, like for research. You see, like 8 channel, 10 channels. The one we have is 4 channels. This is what we call a channel, and the one we have has 12 plants per channel. Commercially, these are 20-foot long. This is the most popular for hydroponic lettuce growing in a greenhouse commercially, because this is the easiest to deal with. No media, no soil. You can, any person, no matter how old you are, male, female, young, old, you can carry this at harvest, carry it to the harvest table, harvest, clean it, refill it, and bring it back. So that's the advantage of it. So that's nutrient film. So NFT or nutrient film technique, people call them gutters, people call them channels. The way it works is that you have that thin film of nutrient that's running down the channel. That's why it's called nutrient film technique. And so the plant roots are sitting there and they are being bathed with that nutrient. Okay, and it's a recycling. It's a closed loop system. The nutrient go out, they run down that channel, and at the end they go back to the reservoir. So what we call a closed loop system. Commercially, they can have that pump running 24 hours a day, or at home, in a smaller system, you can afford to run it on a timer. And you have to adjust the timer. So let's say start with 5 minutes every 2 hours, and then see if you need to increase or decrease the frequency. It's very versatile system. Like I told you, the most popular commercially. And if anybody wants to start, I would, as a hobby, I'll tell you start with this, because you only need a water pump. Air is not needed. Okay, so see here, this is on a commercial scale. Each one of these channels is about 20 foot long. And so, like I said, you need an angle. The nutrient solution comes out from the reservoir. So here's the only thing you need. Electricity is that water pump, and a slope. I'm sorry, not angle, slope. You need a slope for that reservoir, so that when the water pours here, that thin film of nutrient solution runs down that angle, that slope, and washes and wets the roots of the plant, and it comes out on the other end and goes back to the reservoir. So you don't need air, because the plants are sitting in air between watering, and they will do fine. Okay, and the slope that you want is about 2 or 3% slope. And you can buy a commercial, like you see here. Some of these channels are prefabricated, pre-molded, and or some people get PVC pipe and cut them and drill them. Um, um, make their own. Okay. So some of the challenges that you have is that you will have algae if you make your own PVC, something that cannot open the lid, so to wash it. And then what can you do to wash the inside with a pressure washer? It's not that easy. So yes, a PVC works, but it's not that easy to wash it once in a while to clear out the algae. Algae is not a problem. It's not toxic. It's not gonna host E. coli to bother you or your health. It is just can clog the system eventually if it gets real bad. Okay. So here are our systems, and we've grown all kind of plants. Even though they are made for small plants, like herbs, like lettuce, like I told you, is number one crop grown in hydroponic system. But I've grown chives, I've grown bigger plants. Like you see, basil here. We've grown kale. We've grown Swiss chard. I've grown mint. This is a commercial operation. You see each one of these channels. If you want to do this at home, look at this picture on the left. It is more the space use is high efficiency here. Look, there's very little wasted space. You don't see a lot of the white pipe. Look at all that space. You're seeing the ground below it. This is a waste of space. If you get them closer together, those plants are getting plenty of sun, and lettuce does not really want a lot of light compared to other plants. So if the leaves are touching each other, you are maximizing the use of your space. And like my system that I have 4 channel, I can easily make them 6 or 7 if the channels are touching each other, like the picture here on the left. Okay. The pros of an NFT system is that you don't have to worry about oxygen, adding an air pump. The disadvantage of such a system is that because that thin film of water or nutrient solution is in that channel, that temperature can warm up quickly of that water. Anytime I say water, by the way, guys, anytime I say water, I mean nutrient solution. Okay. So that water temperature can increase in response to the air temperature. Okay. So the plants can wilt quickly since they are soaked occasionally with water if you have a power outage for an extended period of time. So that was the NFT. And this afternoon, at the end of the whole, I will take a 15-minute break, which will give me time to walk to my greenhouse, and I'll log in back on my phone and give you a virtual tour. So you can see all this, and you'll see plants growing in my aquaponic system. So please stay for that if you like to see that virtual tour. The second system in the hydroponic I'd like to talk about is what we call deep water culture. DWC, also known as floating raft culture, also known as pond culture. So that kiddie pool that I showed you first in the passive system is an example of the deep water culture. And this is the schematic of how the system works. You have a deep tank, so it's not a 2-inch deep channel. This can be minimum 6 inches, can be as high as 12 inches. You definitely need an air pump because water is not moving. If it gets warm, the plants will rot because the plant roots are sitting in that nutrient solution. So you pump air so these plants can stay alive. And those plants are sitting in a hole in that foam, just like I showed you in that kiddie pool picture. Okay, and here is a system. You see these are the boards, and the standard size is 2x4 because 2x4, 2 feet by 4 feet length. Any person, when full at harvest, any person can still harvest it. It's not that heavy. So that size 2x4 became the standard size in the industry. So you can see all of these are close to harvest and all of these are recently planted. You don't need alleyways. You don't need anything. This is a huge tank, let's say 30 feet by 30 feet, because you can move the foam boards to you. And so like this end here is the harvest end, and you move everything, and then you put the plants on this end, which is the loading end. Okay. So anywhere, the water depth anywhere from 6 to 12 inches, and you definitely need an air pump because you see here as the water temperature increases, the oxygen, dissolved oxygen in the water drops dramatically. So if you need 8%, that's a water temperature should not be more than 20, which is about like 70, 72 degrees. Okay. So, and here's another example of deep water culture. You see, this is using pond liner. As a homeowner, you can use a pond liner, no problem. But if you think you want to sell, you cannot use a pond liner because that's not food grade. You need to get the white material liner from specialized stores, and that is food grade quality, and then you can sell it. Of course, this is just filled with a nutrient solution. You don't see the foam board, you don't see the plant yet. Okay. So you fill it with a nutrient solution. You adjust the pH. You adjust to get the desired pH somewhere like let's say 6.5, 6.5, and you add an air pump. You add the foam board loaded with plants, and you're ready to go. It's as simple as that. There's no movement water. There's no water pump, but there is a air pump. And in this case, you put an air pump like a hose with an air stone at multiple locations. Because if you put an air pump here, an air stone on this end, that oxygen is not going to dissolve and go reach all the way here because that water is static. So make sure you put multiple air stones, let's say every 3 feet. Okay. This is a Muchi farm in Canada. You can see that each section, and they must be, using channels, but sitting in a deep water culture. So they're combining both systems. But the foam cut in the channels. You see here these holes, and let's say 8 feet wide each section, and they seed and they transplant whenever they're ready for harvest. And I like the concept of alternating young with old. This way, the plants are not too crowded for ease of maintenance and all that. So this is the typical stand nowadays. Nowadays, you can buy them pre-molded, very strong foam, much stronger than the foam you buy from Home Depot, so it doesn't break. This can be 1 inch thick, but it's very strong, not gonna break. And they are pre-molded to with the square holes because that's also become the standard. You don't have to buy the net cups. You don't have to buy Grodan to go in the net cups. You can put the Grodan cell from the germination directly here. So less labor, less parts, less all that. This has 28 holes per board, but some are 18, some are 36, depending on are you growing seedlings, are you growing bigger plants at harvest, etc. So what we call raft boards or hydroponic boards, and I can't see the brand name. This is in our system at our research facility without the foam board, without nothing, but just showing you that we have these tanks specialized for hydroponic production. I think you can see the stain. You see that white line here? Follow my laser pointer. That's the stain of where that nutrient solution was. Okay, plus the depth of the foam board, and that reaches the edge of that foam board. So very simple. You can build the frame from wood pieces or cinder blocks and put the liner, and there you have your, and then put an air pump, and you can start growing plants, such a system. Here is loose leaf, Chinese cabbage, bok choy, flowers, Japanese edible plant. I can't pronounce the name. I'm sorry. Okay, spinach, all kind of spinach. Again, this is media in net cup, in Home Depot foam board or Lowe's in nutrient solution. So this is something like you could do. That media we thought may fall apart and get into nutrient solution. That doesn't happen too much. That's why it was popular in the past. But everybody now commercially switched to Grodan cubes, and I'll show you what they are if you don't know what they are. Just because less labor, because filling the cup, to seeding, transferring, all this is a lot of extra labor. Okay, and here are the pre-molded foam boards with the Grodan cubes growing. We were doing all kind of experiment, different fertilizer, organic fertilizer versus non-organic. We've done all kind of research. The third system is the deep flow technique or the trough system. Basically, it's the same idea as it's a combination of the nutrient film technique and the deep water culture, okay? So it's a deep water level, but the water is flowing, is not static. Enters from one end and gets out at the other end. Let's say, and here's these two, they are connected. So the water flow from one goes to the other, goes back to the tank, and then continue. You still need an air pump. It's just that this uh, commercially is safer than the static water because the water movement can reduce dead spots or low oxygen level in case you put the air stone far apart. Okay, here on the left is a commercial operation because that liner is white, and here on the right is more for research, what we were doing. And you see the liner is that pond liner. And here, this one in the picture on the right, this is only 6 inch. This is only a 6 inch piece of wood board. So barely like 5 inches of water depth. Okay, whereas here, this is a 10-inch board. And that tells you, is that meaning there you have about 8 inches deep of water. Still called deep flow technique. Okay. The pros and cons of deep water culture are, low maintenance, easy to build, a few moving parts. I mean, just air pump. The plant can survive without electricity, especially in the cool weather, because that water is still holding oxygen, and they can survive for a day or two. But you're doing such a system in middle of July. The next day the plants are wilted. Okay. Because you have such a large volume of water, it acts like a buffer, so the EC, the pH, the temperature don't fluctuate too much. But because you have such a large volume of water, and that temperature doesn't fluctuate too much, that can be a disadvantage to you. Let's say going from spring to spring to early summer, the air temperature is high, but that water is still cool, and it did not warm up as fast, and that big drastic difference may not be suitable for some plants. Okay. Another disadvantage is you may need a large volume of fertilizer to start. I mean, imagine sometimes some system you have 1,000 gallons of water, so that you have to add enough fertilizer for that 1,000 gallon, compared to an NFT system. Like my system is 40 gallons of water for those 48 plants. And you definitely need an air pump, which can be a disadvantage in case you have a power outage. Okay. What can you grow? All the leafy greens, all the herbs. I've grown mint for a year. I've even grown dwarf tomatoes. I've grown plants that I would consider little big, like kale and calette and Swiss chard. Those are not herbs like parsley and cilantro and lettuce. Those are bigger plants. But the interesting about these systems is because the plants are sitting in a nutrient-rich solution, they don't have to spend energy to grow an extensive root system to go hunt for water and nutrients. Water and nutrients are coming to them. So they make a smaller root system and adapt by making a smaller root system. So that's why you are able to grow bigger plants. Even tomatoes, I know tomatoes are grown in some deep water culture systems. Okay, this is our research lettuce, of course, earlier in the spring, before it got too hot. And we've done all kind of research, different fertilizers, different varieties. And these are more on a commercial scale system. This is spinach production is still a challenge. It doesn't have the best germination. It doesn't tolerate higher temperature. So this spinach variety in Japan, it's a unique variety that is not. I haven't seen it grown here in the U.S., but it seems to be adapted. But we've also done research where we cooled the water and we were able to grow better quality plants, even if the air temperature in greenhouse was hot. But some of the plants survived and did well just because we chilled the water. This way, you don't have to cool down the whole greenhouse. You just cool down the water. Okay. So now switching from hydroponic, where you are using water as the substrate, now we are switching to something where you are using a media as a substrate, whether perlite, whether peat pellets, peat or coconut core or clay pellets, all that. The most popular one is Dutch bucket. So look up Dutch bucket. There's tons of videos, YouTube on people making their own version of the Dutch bucket. They can be filled with perlite, cocoa core, clay spheres. Okay. And this is a system where you must have a timer. You cannot have plants sitting in some type of media, soilless media, and then have run the water running 24 hours a day. Unlike the hydroponic, where you can have the plants either sitting in water like deep water culture or water running through them like in a nutrient film technique, but they still survive. You cannot have a soilless type like these Dutch bucket or other types like the grow bag or 5 gallon bucket filled with media and then run the water or nutrient solution constantly. Okay. Now the circulation can be closed loop, just like the NFT I told you earlier, meaning the nutrient solution goes out and then goes back to the reservoir, what we call closed loop system, or drain to waste, meaning the nutrient solution goes out but does not go back to the tank, to the reservoir tank, what we call the open loop system. Okay, the open loop system is more better suited for peppers, tomato, cucumber, those fruiting vegetables that are long term crops. Lettuce 30 days, kale you can start harvesting in 35 days. Anything, let's say less than 50 days, closed loop will work fine, but anything 50 or longer, let's say all these fruiting vegetable, if you have a closed loop system, you put an old new fertilizer in the tank on top of old fertilizer, you're going to have an imbalance and pH is messed up and EC is messed up and the plants will suffer. That's why these fruiting vegetables are better suited for the open loop system. So this is a schematics of a Dutch bucket. So each one of these is a Dutch bucket, let's say filled with perlite. The pump pumps the water in that black hose. The drip the water, drip the nutrient solution, and then the excess comes out at the bottom and goes out here, goes out. That's an open loop. It does not go back to the reservoir tank. This is a schematic. This is my system that I have at the Dallas Center. When I was growing tomatoes, and you see, this is the reservoir. The pump pumps it out, and they drip through these white tubing, what we call spaghetti tubing, into the bucket that's filled with perlite. The excess water nutrient solution comes out as waste. I dug a hole, put a bucket to collect that fertilizer to use it somewhere else. I mean, still good quality fertilizer. I hate it to waste it. I hate it to waste. Okay. Now, to avoid this extra waste, you can set your timer so that very little waste comes out. So let's say you turn it on and then you start the timer, and then you say, around minute 3, I started seeing water dripping out of here. Then I set my timer, let's say 3 minutes and 15 seconds. So very little waste is gone. This way you don't need that reservoir because you're not wasting anything. You're adding enough water to replace what was used by the plant. Okay, that is the real life system of an open loop Dutch bucket system. Compared to this little system here that's elevated, and that is a closed loop system because the water, you don't see it here, but the water at the end of the hose go back under by gravity, goes back to the reservoir below it. And here, actually, here's a better view. Here's the pump going out, and then the water return pipe is here, and that drops into back to the reservoir. So you see here, I'm not growing tomatoes. I'm growing short-term crop, basil, chives, this. And the minute they start showing burn or toxicity or unusual growth, that's when we shut down the system because the EC is messed up, which will happen because you're adding new fertilizer on top of old fertilizer, and you never want to do that. But we've grown cucumbers, we've grown all kind of plants. Just sometimes proof of concept. We didn't harvest anything because the powder mildew ate us alive, but we did well. This is a commercial operation. Instead of a Dutch bucket, you can buy a bag that's pre-filled with either perlite or coconut core, ready to go, that has 2 holes pre-molded where you put the plant in and you attach the emitter to it. So all the commercial greenhouse tomato that you buy are grown in a hydroponic system, more specifically a open loop, soilless media type system. Okay. Um, and here is strawberry, which can be challenging. Strawberry will never work if you're trying to grow in water. So you definitely need some kind of substrate to grow the strawberry in it. And of course, this is like a recirculating system. By gravity, it goes from this to this to this, and then goes back. Either I cannot tell from this picture whether it goes to waste or goes back to the nutrient reservoir tank. Okay, and here's the combination of substrate and deep flow technique. So the plants are in media, soilless media, but that pot, which is let's say 3 by 3 inches, is sitting in that here under the foam where there's water running, and they soak up the nutrient solution, and that's how they get the water. So it can be done if you know the requirements of the plants. Vertical tower, there are different kinds. So now instead of horizontally, you're thinking of growing plants vertically. Okay, to take advantage of the floor space and then grow more plant per square foot. You can have tower gardens or grow racks. I'll show you example. This is Zip Grow. It's famous and they've been selling for years. You can buy a kit like this one, or you can buy a bigger system for commercial operation, like you see here on the right side in a warehouse. Inside the warehouse building, so they had to add this wall of LED lights to grow the plants. So you are taking advantage of the airspace and then grow plant vertically. It can be a little bit more efficient in terms of number of plant per square feet, but it has lots of challenges in case, let's say, this is not dripping or it's clogged, and that whole channel dries out quicker. Okay, the one that I'm testing at Texas A&M is by this company called Hydroponic. It had a small reservoir, like a 3-gallon, and each row had 8 plants. And then when you build it, and they snap together, this is 8 rows. So in a square footage of, let's say, 2 by 2, you have 64 plants. Great for a hobbyist until I started using it and realized that this reservoir of 3 gallons dried out quickly. Okay, I mean, you'd go 2 days later and the plants are wilted. So what I did is I dug a hole, and now the pump that was sitting here, now I ran this pump through that hole, and now it's sitting in a 30 or 40 gallon reservoir instead of 3 gallon reservoir, and it lasted a lot longer. So life gives you lemon, you make lemonade. And all this frame is I just build it from spare parts I have, and now I was able to grow a beautiful crop without having to worry about the plants wilting every 2 or 3 days. And I bought two systems, one without light, and you see here these LED lights. But lettuce grows very well. Does not have a huge light requirement, and they were growing well with or without light. And this is a time lapse showing, like within days, they were ready for harvest. What I didn't like about it are two things: is that the reservoir was too small, you had to worry about it filling it, and see leaks at the sea here. So if I were to do it right, if you want to buy this, I recommend you use crazy glue to seal all these so there's no leaks, so it doesn't dry out faster. Now, if you want to do it even better, like in this commercial operation, then instead of this reservoir, they have a huge reservoir, and the nutrient solution is pumped in here and goes up, and then the water rains down on the inside, and then the return line goes through this pipe. Okay, so it was built in a way so that there's a huge reservoir pumping the water in, and then the water goes out back to that reservoir. So it can be done, and then in this system, you don't in this configuration, you never have to worry about running out of water or refilling that reservoir. But now, 2 by 2 square feet has 64 plants. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, more than. So now you have 12 times 8, say about 100 plants. But look how far apart they have to be so that they don't shade each other. So one system is great for a homeowner as using your square footage. You put one on the patio or not in the middle of the yard where it can get real hot. But if you want to grow commercially, I don't think this is excellent, most efficient use of space. Okay, but like I said, once you know all the configuration and how they are put together, you can build it any way you like. You want to build an A-frame. This is what we call an A-frame, and then PVC pipes and the water running from one to another, and it could be water, or you can cut the channel and fill it with media. If you want to do this, fill it with media. Don't go with peat or potting mix or clay pellets. That adds up a lot of weight. Consider perlite. It's light. It has good water holding capacity. And perlite, if you don't know what I mean, when you open a potting mix bag and then you see those white pellets, that's the perlite. You can buy pure perlite, a bag that has only perlite. And if you want to grow in anything like this, like a soilless substrate, Dutch bucket, grow bags, any of these channels you see here, I recommend perlite. Okay, and so look, it can be beautiful for agritourism, show and tell, hobby. Look, I mean, look, they're really pretty. Of course, the plants don't care. They can't think. They don't have feelings. They don't care. It's for you, which system you like. You want to make it look pretty or not. Okay. I mean, look at this beautiful loop, like a DNA strand, and the plants are growing. That's really pretty. This is taken at Epcot Park. Okay, and this is look like a tower plants. I mean, really beautiful. And what I like about this is that they maximize use of the place. You have plants growing here in the water, and that same water pumped up, and on top they're growing. Let's say cucumber, where it needs more light. and here the herbs that needs less light, so that is they don't shade on each other. So maximizing use of space here and vertical, and on top the plants that need the most light, and you can harvest a lot of things at once, and it still looks pretty. Okay, that is the vertical tower. Grow rack is also vertical, but now you have shelves on top of each other. Okay, so, and because they're shelves on top of each other, so definitely 100% shading from one shelf on top of the other one, you definitely need light. Every shelf has its own LED grow lights, so that there's no issue with light and you can grow the best plants. So here is the system that we have. See, each shelf has its own light, has its own fan, and the pump from this reservoir is being pumped up to here, and then drains to the next one, and drains to the next one, and goes back to the reservoir. And each one has a grow light. We grew plants where we were harvesting and eating, and now we're using it exclusively as a germination chamber. It does very well because, grow light. And here is Bootstrap Farmer. You can buy a kit. You see here is the reservoir, and here's the shelf with its own light, and here's the other shelf with its own light, and here's the shelf with its own light. Okay, this can be great for microgreens, great for herbs, great for small plants that, because you see you have limited space, 2 by 4 and maybe 2 inches. So you can't grow tomato. It's going to be 3 foot tall. So it has to be small plants. And in my experience, these will be the best for microgreens because, or germination table. Okay, see, or lettuces and stuff, something that can grow within a foot, because these shelves are about 12 to 16 inches apart. So you have about 12 to 4 inches space between the plant and the light, and so you can grow these herbs quickly. Don't grow too tall and harvest them before they reach the light and burn. Because even though LED does not produce a lot of heat, like an incandescent light bulb, but they still produce enough heat that you need fan for cooling down the system. Okay, ebb and flow or flood and drain more commonly is another system. This is back to the water, where you pump the water. The plants are sitting in a pot. They soak up the water from the bottom up, because that pot is sitting, it gets flooded, and then the pot soaks up the nutrient that it needs. And then when the pump shuts down, the water drains back to the reservoir. That's why it's called flood and drain. You don't need air pump, because that plant's in between watering is a pot. I mean, really, it's a pot. And so here is our system turned off. You can see the stain here, and this pumps up the water to here. We ran it for 3 minutes, which gave us an inch of depth here, and the pots are sitting at the bottom, and then drains back when the pump shuts off after 3 minutes, and drains back to the reservoir tank. You can see it here clearly, and I put this red line to mark where that water level reach at maximum at like minute 3 before it shut down, started to drain. And then you can see the stain of the pots where they were. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times 4, 36 plant in this 2 by 4, and they were watered. This is great. It's becoming more popular for nurseries. Imagine you have a huge nursery, and then you have to send your workers to water each pot with this system. It's a little bit extra investment early for that hardware and the pumps and all this and the timers, but watering is automatic. So in the long run, you can save money on labor. Okay. Finally, we switch to aeroponic, which is the same idea, if you like to think, as the nutrient film technique. But now in that channel, instead of the water running as a nutrient film technique, you have a hose with nozzles. And then on a timer, that nozzle is spraying the nutrient solution and keeping and then the roots absorb it. So here is that same channel after look how roots started to grow and they're being wetted with that nutrient solution. And this is beautiful system. You want to see roots that are ivory color. If they're too brown or too dark, then there's some rot and something wrong with the system. You only need an air pump. Sorry, water pump. You don't need an air pump because those roots are hanging in the air. You need mist nozzles, and you need excellent filtration system and a good quality fertilizer that is 100% water soluble, because these are fine nozzle that will spray a mist. If there's any debris or sand or whatever and that clog it, then these plants will wilt fast if they are not watered 4, 5, 6 times per day. Okay. And this is a model we tested for Eden Grow Company. Here's the reservoir, and this is the system with its own light. One level with its own light and fans, and this is the second level with its own light and fan, and each one had 32 plants. And then when you open the zipper, here is the hose that's inside with the nozzles spraying, and then the water fills up and drains back to the reservoir at the bottom. Okay. So you want to grow long-term crops, like I said, like fruiting vegetable, your tomato, pepper, beans, melon, etc. Your best choice is using a soilless substrate system, or DFT, like Dutch bucket, soilless substrate, like the biggest issues you have in a hydroponic, beside pest, is tip burn and bolting. Tip burn and bolting. This lettuce that started to bolt is still edible. If you're selling, it's not going to sell, but it's still edible and still nutritious. Tip burn, that's ugly and may affect the taste also. So the best thing is to switch to a different variety. There are more and more varieties for greenhouse that tell you resistant to tip burn, resistant to bolting. So start with those. That's the best approach, is to choose a resistant variety instead of trying to fix the problem. I mean, what can you do if you put this in a greenhouse that's air conditioned? Then each lettuce is like a $30 lettuce. Cheaper to buy it. So switch to a different variety that's resistant, and your problem are a lot easier. Of course, if you have a small greenhouse or a high tunnel or whatever, and you have to burn, you can buy a vertical fan that will circulate the air and keep that water movement, and that water movement will improve transpiration, and that transpiration will move the calcium with the water, and you don't have to burn. So you see here the leaves showing the tip burn before we added the fan, and then here this foam. I mean, this foam board, this plant is part of this foam board, so you can see tip burn damage on the edge. You see the brown spots. And now when we added the fan, all of these plants, after we added that fan, have zero tip burn on them. Works miracle. Of course, the larger your greenhouse, the larger you may need the multiple fans, and that's part of the details. Let's say it tells you 3,000 cubic feet per minute, then you see how many cubic feet you have, and you may have to buy more than one if you have a small greenhouse or whatever. Okay. Mature size was the most popular, and that's what you used to buy in all the hydroponic lettuce. But now what they call teen greens, which are like small, not quite mature, but big enough, or baby greens, and even smaller as microgreens. So now you have 4 sizes, and companies are specializing in mixture. So let's say you have all these 4 plants, 8 plants, 10 plants together, and then you harvest one of each, and that's instant salad that in one clamshell, one box. Okay. So, and for you, if you have a vertical tower or any of these system, plant more than one variety and harvest one leaf from each at this stage and at this stage and at this stage. This way you can eat every day a salad without having to wait at the end and harvest it and wait 30 days. This way, once you start growing, you can harvest a few leaves at the baby green stage when they get bigger at the teen green and even, so don't think of I see, then I have to harvest it only 30 days later. No, you got 64 plants in that tower. If you take one leaf, that's 64 leaves. That's a salad enough for 3 or 4 people. And if in that tower you have 8 levels, each level is a different variety, then you have a salad that has 8 different varieties of plants, much more nutritious than all of them lettuce. Quickly on the nutrient solution, you have to start with high quality water. So test your water. And if it's already 1.5 EC, and then you add fertilizer to it, and then it becomes 2.3, that's poor quality water. Okay. So that may be a challenge if you are, let's say, in the Houston area where your water is already salty to begin with. Okay, you have to monitor your pH and EC regularly, and EC stands for electrical conductivity. If you're familiar with total dissolvable solids, TDS, that's almost similar. They are not the same, but they are closely related. But get a pH EC meter. If you want to do this properly, spend $100 to buy that pH EC meter, and all will be well. Okay. In terms of nutrient solution, you can buy a commercial greenhouse, let's say Peter's fertilizer, that's ready to go, has everything you need in it. Or if you like to buy the individual minerals, there are lots of recipes. So you weigh 125 grams, 31 grams, whatever, all of these, and then you have the instant recipe. This is what we do for our research. But in your case, you have to start 3 things to be successful. You have to have a good quality greenhouse grade fertilizer. Make sure it's greenhouse grade, meaning it's 100% water soluble. You have to have good quality water to begin with, and get the third one is get a good quality pH EC meter. Then all you have to worry about is your pests and diseases and harvesting and eating. Okay, you should not be worrying about water and fertilizer and quality of this or quality of that. You should just worry about pests and diseases, and harvesting and enjoying your hydroponic garden. Okay, I did a small experiment where I grew the same 4 spinach plants in pH at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And here are the plants next to each other from the left to right: 3, pH 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Remember, I said pH around 6, 6.5. So 3, 4, 5, 6. So between these two. But look, pH 8 is not bad. pH 9 is not bad. Maybe fewer leaves, but it's only when you drop to 3 and 4 that's when the water is too acidic. Look, it burned the plant. There are no roots. So definitely pH 3, plants will die. I mean, this is dead. Roots are dead and the plant's barely surviving. pH 4, fewer roots. You're wasting your money because you're going to harvest half the number of yield. 4, 5, borderline. The plants are struggling. So really 6, 7, 8, 9 maybe. But 6, 7, 8, if your pH is there. As a hobbyist, the yield here is 5-10% less. Commercially, that 5-10% less yield is a lot of money. But as a hobbyist, if your pH is 8, I would consider focus more on EC, not reaching too high instead of worrying about the pH. But there's pH upper, there's pH downer, the pH up, pH down that you can buy on Amazon. You add a few drops or a capful, and it'll adjust the pH from 8 to 6, and keep it where the range you want. For those systems that use soilless media like Dutch bucket, grow bags, coconut core has great water retention, rockwool, excellent water retention, but it's expensive, and you have to adjust the pH. Clay pellets, it's pH neutral. You don't have to adjust the pH. It's reusable, but the best suited for flood and drain systems. Okay, but don't use the clay pellets alone. If you can do 1-to-1 ratio of clay pellets and coconut core is better. Okay. The perlite is the best overall because it's light, reusable, great water retention. You don't have to adjust the pH. And as a hobbyist, you can recycle, use that same Dutch bucket for multiple crops commercially just to avoid any potential issues. They dump it and they start with a new bag. Okay. Here are the different types of media. This is what we call Ella pot. It's like already comes wrapped with a paper thin media, but it's filled with potting mix. This is Jiffy, the same wrap paper and filled with coconut core. This is the rock wool. I mentioned Grodan multiple times. This is how the rock wool looks like. Each one of these separate individually, and it's square, so it fits in that foam board with that square hole. And this is CBOP. Again, it's that pre-molded, pre-shaped, filled with more like cocoa fiber, drains too much. So we tried growing lettuce, the same lettuce crop in all these four material, and they did and after a while we here are the same lettuce variety grown for the same length of time, and the difference in size is due to the how well they drained. CBOB drains very fast, so those dried out in between watering, so they grew less. And this is Jiffy, had better water retention, but less than Elapop, less than Rockwool, you see. So can you use CBOP? Yes, you can. You have to water it more frequently. Can you use Jiffy? Yes, you can. You just have to water it more frequently than rock wool. So maybe something that does not require a different crop that does not require, let's say spinach, maybe Jiffy best suited for it because too much water can rot the seedling and inhibit germination. Okay, but this is the rock wool, and see here is the Grodan cube. See how this individual cell, and it's a square shape, so it can go directly from seeding directly to that foam board or that NFT channel, because now everything has that square hole pre-molded to fit that. This has become the standard. The Grodan, the rock wool has become the standard for commercial operation. One time, directly from seeding to harvest, one step, one media instead of switching. No need for net cups, no need for anything. And that's what net cups look like. So search for net cup. And you see it has big holes. We thought, is that media equivalent with potting mix? Is that going to fall through that hole and ruin our system? So we tried putting tissue paper so that it doesn't fall out, and we found it does not do any big difference. Okay, then very little fell out. If you want to make your own foam boards, get foam and drill a hole, but you don't want to use net cup or media. You have an alternative, something that's called grow grip. They come in square, circular or elongated. You see that slit. So if you squeeze here, that slit open, and you put that bare root seedling in it, and that goes into the tube, into the hole on that circular hole that you've cut into the foam board. And this way you don't need net cup, you don't need media. You just have to grow them, grow those seedling in some sand or some loose rock wool, or perlite, and then shake off so you have a bare root seedling, and it goes into that. Great way for homeowner, but not best suited for commercial because lots of extra work. Grodan is the best. Let me show you some of the crop we played with. Here's mint and growing in NFT in that 2x4 channel. We grew mint for a whole year and we harvested every other plant. So this way they don't shade on each other. And once in a while we remove the lid of that channel and we cut the rhizomes off and gave roots a haircut to encourage new root to grow. And we were able to grow mint and harvest mint for a whole year. Okay. Here is spinach, same thing. You can see it doesn't have rhizome, but you can see it can have a decent extensive root system. But as long as you see brown, ivory color roots, they're growing well. These here on top are some of the oldest roots that are started to die naturally. But as long as you see a lot of new growth growing, the plants are doing well. I grew kale, basil, calette, which is a new type of kale, big plants in that NFT channel. This is 2x4 and has a thin film of nutrient running through it. They did it. They did very well. I grew cischard. The stem got so big we had to cut it. We couldn't remove it. We had to cut it with a razor blade here at the surface at the end. But we kept harvesting and harvesting, and they did very well and grew for a long time. I even grew rhubarb. Okay, we grew rhubarb for such a long time and kept harvesting. And mustard green, and here's skeleton in the Dutch bucket system. The mole rats loved them until we found where they were coming in, had to plug them and put traps to get them. In terms of pest management, here are some aphids. You see, once they move in, very hard to control because aphids do not lay eggs. The adult female aphid gives birth to live pregnant females, and that female a day later is an adult and start popping more babies, and they hide on the bottom side. So spraying is very tricky. You have to spray every nook and cranny, and then to have 100% coverage, and then follow up with a second and a third spray. Every 5 to 7 days later, one spray is not enough. Sometimes you may have this twisting and curling. It could be a spray. It could. I mean, this is either a mite or herbicide residue or a virus. Okay, in my case, I sprayed a miticide and then the new growth was fine, so I knew it was a mite. If the new growth continued to be mutant like this, then it's a virus and there's no hope, and get rid of that plant. Here is my own recipe of insecticidal soap that I sprayed on those mutant tomato, and they grew out of it because this is an oil that will suffocate everything, aphids or diseases, whatever. Basically, it kills by suffocation, so it's a multi-purpose for mites, for insects, for powdery mildew, for that. And here's my recipe for a 3-gallon backpack sprayer, 20 mils of soap, and 10 mils of oil. The cheapest olive oil that you can, and the soap has to be clear, not the cloudy, the pink or the white. That's not good. It can clog the nozzle. Clear soap. You can use vegetable oil, but I find that the olive oil does not break down as fast, and so get the cheapest kind. Okay. So here is the recipe. And when you fill it in that graduated cylinder, fill the oil first. This way the soap does not stick on the inside of the tube. It pours out faster. Okay. So here is my recipe. It's been working for me. There are lots of companies that are making organic options. So here is Green Cure fungicide, great for powdery mildew. I told you powdery mildew is a problem if you're growing in a greenhouse or control environment. Here's another product that basically think of that brown bottle of hydrogen peroxide. This works the same way. Basically, it's like a hydrogen peroxide mixture. You spray, it bubbles and kills sanitizes the surface. And BioWorks is making lots of organic options. This is called EpiShield, supposed to be great as an insecticide and miticide. I suggest you try it. This slide shows you the companies that are suppliers, and some have videos and information and articles and product info. But Hort Americas, I'm not sure if they can sell individual, so maybe best suited for large scale or, best suited for commercial. I think they will sell for individuals. Bootstrapfarmer.com. They sell both for commercial and for homeowner and hobbyist friendly. They also have videos and podcasts. BWI company is for large scale commercial suppliers. So you may not find, let's say, a 2 ounce fungicide. You're going to have to buy a gallon. That's what I mean by like a commercial. But in terms of parts and supplies, yes, you can buy a pump only from any of these three. But in terms of pesticide, you're going to have to buy a larger volume because they cater for commercial buyers. And finally, Greenhouse Mega Store, they sell everything, everything. Okay. Finally, I give a plug to my YouTube channel. I have videos on for my hydroponic, for my aquaponic, and also for my vegetable garden. So check it out. And these videos, the recordings that we made today, will be on that recorded and posted on that channel in about 2 to 3 weeks. And here's how the channel look like, and here are all kind of videos. And I'm told that 3 to 4 minutes is the most. So 1 minute is better. People love have an attention span deficit when they want to watch videos, so make them short. And I noticed that on myself. So they're all you see in 30 seconds, 20 seconds, minute and a half, etc. With that, let's skip the video. With that, I thank you all, and let's take a couple of minute breaks to allow for the next speaker. Let's end the recording. I apologize for the technical issues we had this morning, and let's come back in a couple of minutes.